Introducing today's guest, who made his first debut showing his naked butt on national TV at just 4 years old. His dream is to spark magic and creativity in people of all ages. He is a professional corporate magician and has built a following of over 4 million people online. Jackson Aces, thank you so much for being my guest today on Moonshot U. Tell me, what made you explore magic?
Well, I got into magic when I was about 12 and a half. And I was at school. This guy showed me a magic trick in geography class, and I'm really competitive. And I was like, "Oh, I want the center of attention. I'll outdo him. I'm going to go home and Google magic tricks and come back tomorrow with a better one." So anyway, this was back in the days when it was like dial-up internet, no such thing as YouTube, or no one knew about YouTube really. And I was online all night looking for magic tricks. And I found like nothing. But because I was online for so long, a magic show came on TV, David Blaine Street Magic. And I'd seen the commercials and, I did well in school, so I was like, oh, magic show, that's easy, I'll figure it out. Anyway, I watched it and I was just hooked on magic from that point on. And I thought it was the real thing. If anyone's seen David Blaine, they know what I'm talking about. The dude is like, he is magic and he's my absolute idol. So yeah, that's kind of like when I was bitten by the magic bug, and it just never left me, and I managed to make a career out of it.
Awesome. So from 12 years old to where you are now, what has the journey been like?
It's had its ups and downs, which I know is cliched, but like the lucky thing for me was I got started in magic when I was pretty young, and I started actually getting out there and performing when I was already just in high school. I was going down to a restaurant that my mum, her friend was the owner of the restaurant. I was going down and I was performing every single weekend, from the age of 15 onwards, and just honing my craft. And then once I left school, I did a year at uni, and that kind of wasn't for me. And I ended up getting taken under the wing of an event producer called Len Pascoe, who was an old cricket legend, an Australian cricketer, and he was doing like sporting events and all of that. So yeah, he saw me at a gig, he sat me down, he said, "You're amazing, you need to get on stage." And I'm like, well, I've only been on stage once and it was on TV, and I don't even have an act. He said, "That's okay. I'm going to book you for a gig soon and we'll get you doing comedy magic." I'm like, oh, okay. So anyway, I have a meeting with him on the Tuesday, and he's like, "All right, you're booked this Friday, 15-minute magic show." I'm like, what? He's like, "Yeah, you'll be fine."
And how old were you?
I was 19. Yeah. And it wasn't just like someone's like 18th birthday or something. It was like a proper sporting luncheon. VIPs were there, Daryl Broman, Doug Walters, and oh man, I don't know how I got through that 15-minute performance, but somehow I did. I had no idea what I was doing. But then he basically started to mentor me, helped me to pick and choose material, told me what do the corporates want, what do they not want, what do you need to kind of do to make it valuable to have you there, to entertain. You can't just be magic the whole time. You've got to break it up. You've got to have some comedy in there. And I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. I had no idea about anything, really. And he was getting me like 1 or 2 gigs a week for several years. And then I ended up at a cabaret magic show, and I was there for like 5 years, and ended up being the resident magician at the casino for a couple of years. And now it's kind of like just all corporate events, and also social media content has become a big thing. I'm getting brand deals and all this stuff. So it's kind of been, it's been a pretty exciting journey. And it's really, I didn't know that where it was going to lead to. I just knew that this was the path that I wanted to be on, and I would be more than happy to spend the rest of my life doing magic.
And it all started just by being competitive. Yeah. So you were just kind of driven to compete with that buddy from high school and just saying, I can be better than you. And then what? Like, what happened after that?
Well, it definitely started, like the competitive side of it was what interested, well, kind of what spurred me to take action then and there. But, you know, like, I'm not really competitive in rugby league, for example. Like, my dad played for Australia for rugby league. For me, it just wasn't my thing. So it was kind of like magic really just kind of spoke to me and stood out to me. And, like, you know, they always say, you know, I didn't get into magic. Magic got into me. So that's kind of been, I don't know, it's just there's something about magic, and I like being the center of attention. I like to make people, you know, freak out or question their reality. And yeah, while I've gone through different hobbies, like I used to do beatboxing as a kid, and then I got into doing the Rubik's Cube, and, you know, I used to paint Warhammer, a lot of nerdy stuff. Most magicians start out as nerds, or, you know, Revenge of the Nerds kind of thing. I'll be popular now. But magic kind of just stuck with me the whole way. And thankfully, it's the type of thing where you can make a good living doing it, and you're never having a bad day. You're always making people happy. You get to go to celebrations like weddings, corporate events, all this type of thing. Sometimes you'll meet celebrities, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, definitely. And so what we spoke about before is that learning magic is kind of like skateboarding. Yeah. And for any new skill, what do you need? Something like 10,000 hours to really, really master it?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably some skills that don't take that amount of time, but depending on what you want to learn in magic, like, there's a lot to being a good magician that I would never have expected, and you don't realize until you go out there and you suck and the show just goes poorly, or you've rehearsed everything in your room or to your family that you think could go wrong, and you know, you think you've got all your bases covered, and you go out there and then this happens, or people respond like this, or they want to look in your sleeves, or this or that. So there's definitely thousands of hours for sure in being a good magician. And I remember it took me at least a year before I was able to really pull off any decent tricks and amaze people even just one-on-one, you know. But it's also, I think that it's like the quality of the hours that get put in is a massive thing, because I could practice for 100 hours in my room, but if I go and, for example, step on stage and do a 20-minute show, or I go to a restaurant and I perform for 15 to 20 tables that night, and I get to practice that routine 20 times and field test it and see what's the responses, what are people saying, what didn't they react to, where did it just not seem to really hold the audience. That 3 hours is worth more than 100 hours just practicing in my room. So for anyone listening to this who is trying to develop a skill where it's like I don't know exactly what to apply it to or compare it to, but like, for example, I know you do, you know, presentations and whatnot. So it's like you could practice the speech for 20 hours. That 20 minutes on stage is going to be, you're going to learn 10 times as much in 20 minutes that you do in 20 hours. Yeah. So definitely you need to have the foundation there of that 20 hours rehearsing the speech itself. But a lot of people don't take that next step of actually applying it and then figuring out everything that can go wrong in there. Because I think there's this analogy where you've got your amateur mistakes and then you get into your master mistakes. And it's not like this thing like, oh, you won't figure out, I don't see it as like you won't figure out any mastery kind of solutions or problems in the first 5,000 hours. You definitely can. And if you kind of put yourself, like you really push yourself to do more than you think and go for these opportunities, you learn so much faster. And no matter what, you're going to have problems. No matter what, you're going to come up against things where, oh my gosh, that went so bad. I'm so embarrassed, you know. But there's no way around that. You can't plan for every single thing, and you have to learn it by doing as well as practicing.
That's exactly it. And tell me, you highlighted something important. Sometimes you'll perform and the audience won't respond according to plan. What do you do when things don't go according to plan?
Well, I was actually thinking about this on the drive over here, because so you start out, right, as you want to be a magician, and you get a magic kit, or you might get a DVD with card tricks and what have you. And you'll practice for hours to master this trick. You go out, perform it, and you go out and you practice one trick, and you try one trick for starters, and you go, oh, that wasn't as good. Okay, I'll try it on another person. They kind of liked it. And you kind of have to field test it on, 5 or 10 of the general public, on people who aren't just like mum and dad being like, that's great. You have to actually try it out. And you don't know if that trick is going to play for an audience until you've tried it out on at least a sample amount of people in the population. So you got to do that kind of for one trick, and then you would develop another and another, and you'll eventually keep going back to the drawing board, saying, okay, why wasn't that impressive? Is there a better trick that I could do? Is there something that suits the situation better? And then you keep going out and trying it, and you eventually develop these, you could say, like, you develop your certainties, your sure things. And that applies with anything, like you're developing a presentation. Okay, the audience has to kind of be attentive and be listening to me. So the very first thing before even saying your first words or getting into your presentation is, okay, how do I get the audience's attention from the get-go and make sure that they're actually there, like mentally they're there, they're ready to listen to you. And there's different ways that you do that, like you'll get an MC, and if the MC gives you a shoddy intro, or he doesn't quiet down the audience, then you go on and it's 10 times harder, right? So you're developing your certainties, and then, it's just kind of this type of thing where you're never going to have a perfect act. You're always going to be able to improve it, and there's always going to be, new things that come along or that crop up where I want to put that in. That'll be perfect, and that's even better than what I'm doing now. You put it in, you iron out all the kinks, because no matter how much you rehearse it, you go out there and, that was awkward, or, there was a moment there that things kind of could have went wrong, or, they wanted to do this, the volunteer, and that really put me on the spot and nearly revealed the secret. So it's just like you're always kind of trying to do better, and it's the type of thing where you want to work on one thing at a time, if possible. You get that one trick down, you try it in front of an audience, and you keep trying it until you get that one nailed. Okay, you got that one, you can do that one. Next time you work on another one, right? You get that one down. You do it 50 times to 50 different people. You work out every single thing that can go right and wrong, and then it's like, boom, that's your baby. You got that one there too. And ideally, as a magician, you then have a starting trick and a closing trick, and now you can bookend your new tricks that you're working on between two tricks that are already good. So then you go out there, start with your good one, you try out the next one, might go good, might go okay, and then you finish with a killer, your best trick. So that's been kind of the way that I've developed it, and it's just been hours and hours and just meeting thousands and thousands of people, just doing it again and again. And, a lot of the lessons that I've learned, I don't even consciously know, like, how to teach it, because you figure out how to just act or react or handle certain things, and I couldn't even be like, you do this, and this is the reason behind that. It's just it because you've done it.
It's kind of intuitive, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. And when you're working with people, you kind of have to be intuitive. But if you haven't worked with people a lot, or in those scenarios, you just have to go out there and be willing to suck. Give yourself permission to go out there and fail at it. Ideally, you put yourself in a situation where, like, my absolute blessing, and the reason I have gotten to where I've gotten to already at such a young age is because I was able to go to my mum's friend's restaurant any night of the week and just practice magic. And it didn't matter if I dropped the cards or did a bad performance or they sent me away or whatever. I wasn't getting paid like $500 to be there, and it's like, oh my God, they want a refund now. It was just like, go and just learn, you know? So that has probably been the one thing that has helped me the most, is being able to be in front of an audience and be out there and be like testing things and trying things.
No, definitely. And see how you were talking about certainties. What do you think helps you when it does come to failure? So for example, I know a lot about my audience, and some of the things that hold them back is the fear of failure. So not wanting to do something. And what I've spoken about quite openly is my failure, or one of them, when it came to the youth day. So thank you so much for coming along and supporting me, even though you had no one in the audience. Like not many people turned up.
Yeah.
And what I did to kind of deal with that was actually tap into my highest vision. So this is what I talk about a lot, like what is the highest version of me? And what does that look like? And then when I look at that from a greater perspective, like a grander vision, this little mistake, this little muck up doesn't actually mean anything. And when I put my life into perspective like that, it really, really helps me. So what do you think helps you when it comes to failure exactly in terms of like a coping strategy when it comes to your certainties?
Well, I mean, I hate failing. And that's why I've worked so hard at what I do. And, you know, like if you have a big failure, you don't want it to run your life or ruin your life, but it's an indication that you didn't do something right, or there's something you don't know, or there's something that you missed. And yeah, I mean, the more that you kind of get out there and keep trying things, the more you realize that failures happen all the time. And you don't, like, I'm not saying, yeah, go be a good failure is the best or anything, but it's like, it's not that big of a deal, you know? And even if you were to fail on a grand scale, you know, or you think 1,000 people are going to show up and, oh my God, you know, we only had 100. It's like, oh my gosh, you feel devastated. It's like, well, only 100 people know about it, you know? And like I've had shows where there were like, you know, 12 people in the audience. You know, I've had all kinds of things go wrong. I've had people, you know, send me away, or from like, no, we don't want you, or they like heckle. And it's just, you develop a tough skin. You develop a thick skin.
But you can only start by doing. That's the really important part to highlight here.
Yeah.
Is just start.
And you have to do it. You have to. Like, you're going to fail. It doesn't matter. Who cares? Doesn't, like, you're not going to get to where you want to be without maybe like 100 failures. So it's like, do it now or do it later. May as well do it earlier. Because you're going to, and he, like, people, I'm the same too. I'll plan as much as I can to avoid a failure. I don't want to fail. Who does? But like, I want to succeed, and I can't succeed unless I walk up to the table. Hey guys, how you doing? Would you like to see a magic trick? No, thank you. Oh, okay. Have a good night. Okay. Next person. Hey guys, would you like to see a magic trick? No. Okay, walk away. What am I doing wrong? I'm asking a yes or no question. They don't know if they want to see a magic trick. They might have only ever seen the uncle like try to do the coin thing and then he drops it and it's like, oh, magic sucks. You know? Yeah. So, and then the same thing is like, well, I also don't want to force myself on people and like corner them, but they don't know how good I am. They can't know that yet. So there's one little thing, like you walk up and you go, hi guys, I'm your magician this evening. Let me show you a bit of magic. I'll be here for a few minutes. It'll feel like longer. You right? You've broken the ice. And that kind of intro, that's been from years. You know, and it's not always the same every time. I could give you 5 different intros to go up to an audience and have them kind of, you either slipping in under the radar before they can say no, or you make them laugh and they're like, yeah, they agree to it. There's different ways that you do it. But if you don't walk up to that table, you don't know what you're gonna what's going to work and what's not going to work.
But you only learnt those 5 different approaches from those failures.
Yeah.
So often what I say is, how do you know what light is? You only know what light is because you know darkness.
Yeah.
You only know what success is because you know failure.
Yeah.
It's that perspective that a lot of people need to understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. But great top tip though, definitely just starting. That's where it all begins.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. And so what I wanted to know is, see how it's literally thousands of hours perfecting your craft.
Mm-hmm.
What makes you do that? Because you can sit and watch Netflix. You could go out to the pub with your mates, but you choose to practice magic. Why?
I don't know. For me, like, magic was my calling. And I mean, that lifestyle might not be for everybody. You know, someone with the way that they are and their abilities, or the way that they just kind of, what they want out of life, maybe they just want to have a desk job and just have the security there of having a paycheck and all that. But I'm sure that most people watching this are the type of people who that's not their ideal scene. You know, they want to have it all, or achieve really great things and challenge themselves and do what they would assume is the impossible, you know. And I don't know, I just always wanted to be great. I always wanted to be admired, to be a success. Being a celebrity is also something that, you know, really appeals to me. I don't know why. I don't know what exactly to put it down to, that I stuck with it for so long, except for just this like feeling in here that I have to do that, and I have to do that as best as I can. And I don't think you can teach that. You know, I think that if someone, they could do whatever they want if they have that inside, that they want to do that more than anything, you know. So most of the people watching this, they wouldn't want to be a magician, you know, wouldn't even consider it. They wouldn't even want to learn a magic trick that would take them half an hour. But I'd be willing to spend 100 hours on a magic trick if I know like that is gonna like blow people away. So you know, I don't know. It's this type of thing where I can't really put it into words, you know. It's kind of like, for me, wanting to do great things and also to create an amazing effect on people and create amazing responses with people is kind of like the feeling that a mother would have that she has to protect her kid. It's like, oh, how do you explain that? Oh, that's my child. It's like, well, there's no need to explain it. That is just like, there's this yearning that is what I have to do.
Napoleon Hill refers to it as a burning desire.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. And that's a great way. That's a great way to describe it.
It's a difference, like a really clear difference between just wanting something and having that burning desire. Like, you will stop and do anything to make that happen. And that's exactly why I asked you, like, why do you spend so long practicing? It's not just something that you want, it's something that you have a burning desire for.
Well, I think that where that kind of comes from is, you know, I was privileged to see David Blaine and be inspired by him, and what not even so much what he had done, but kind of what he had become. And it really tripped my trigger that this guy can just do what seems to be anything. He can do the impossible. And he can do these things that you know, mere mortals supposedly can't do. How does he know who that person's thinking of? How does he predict, you know, what cards are going to come out, or this or that? How does he do that? And I'm like, I want to be that. You know, it kind of starts with be, like, what do you want to be? And then you've got do, and then you've got have beneath that, right? So, like, someone might see Tony Robbins and be like, that guy's so inspiring. Look at what he's doing. Look at the audience stuff. But it's kind of like you want to strive to be the best version of yourself. And you see these people who have achieved that high level of mastery, or they've really kind of taken a vision and run with it and gotten it to such a high level and become so powerful, successful, competent, that inspires you to reach for that, you know?
That's exactly why I say create that highest vision for yourself.
Yeah.
Because what's the end goal that you're striving for? So it's not just at the end of the day to have a job, but it's what's your highest purpose in life overall. And let that feeling, that burning desire fuel you.
Yeah.
So that way, if there are failures along the way, they don't actually matter as much. Okay, so from being 19 years old and landing your first gig to where you are now, what were some of the shifts in your thinking and your habits that you had to kind of develop to be where you are now, or to adjust a little bit more to the success that you've gotten? Because I mean, you perform for celebrities all the time. You've got such fame. You've got like 3 million followers on TikTok alone. What were some of the shifts in your thinking?
Like let's take the celebrity thing, right? So that in itself was like a whole other ball game, at least as far as I built it up in my head. Like, okay, I've performed for, you know, run of the mill, the normal people, plenty, and then there's this person there. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's Mike Tyson, or that's such and such. I'm like, oh, am I gonna be good enough? Am I gonna be good enough to blow him away? And it's like, I've done these tricks for thousands and thousands of people. I shouldn't have any doubt in my mind that he's gonna be impressed. And you know, the funny thing was, celebrities are easier to impress because first of all, I feel like they have success, and if people are in a good place in their life, it's easier to entertain them and make them feel good. I had to kind of realize that these people are pretty normal.
They're just like us. They put on their pants one leg at a time.
Yeah.
Same way we do.
Yeah, and the best thing to do is to actually, there's a couple of tricks, and of course, you know me, I love tricks. And one of the tricks with a celebrity is you walk up to them and you say, "Hi, I'm Jackson. Nice to meet you. What's your name?" Not to it's not like a neg or like trying to put them down, but that makes them feel so relaxed because they've had so many people approach them. Hey, hey, Delta Goodrum. Oh my God, I'm such a big fan. And that is super nice if someone ever does that. Like sometimes people do that to me and I'm like, wow, this is so nice. But it's also like it can be a bit intense and it can be uncomfortable. And sometimes they just want to chill out, you know, and have a normal conversation. And they don't want to be, excuse me, they don't want to be put on this pedestal where, oh my gosh, this person is just the bee's knees. It's a lot of pressure, you know. So if you do just that one thing, for example, it takes the pressure off them, makes them feel comfortable around you, and then you can become friends with them. It's really quite easy after that. And, you know, you just, you can talk about, like, for example, you talk about what they're interested in, but you don't do it in a way like, oh, loved your thing here, and da-da-da-da. You know, you just talk to them like, you know that person is in that industry or whatever. Like Luke Lewis, the footballer, is a good friend of mine. He actually loves magic. So we just talk about magic, you know, and we'll talk about footy sometimes as well. But he just loves magic. So it's like, well, that was pretty easy because I had something that I was passionate about. But then I have a friend who was over in LA and he met Leonardo DiCaprio and he spoke to Leo for like an hour. Because Leo is huge on environmentalism, so they spoke about that for an hour, you know? So it's not like this thing like, oh, these people are totally like snobs or whatever. It's just they're people, they have their own interests.
And did you have to break out any certain comfort zones to just be more okay with talking to them or being next to them or even performing for them?
I think that it's the type of thing that you just get better at the more you do it, because like, you know, you'll get nervous every single time you're about to step on stage, but you're able to manage those nerves. Same with meeting a celebrity. It's like, okay, I'm already a bit nervous to do this show, and then it's like, oh my gosh, you know, such and such is in the audience. And then it's like, okay, Now it's just this extra level of pressure. But you do things step by step. You know, and you get this step mastered before you move on to the next step. So it's like a gradual thing.
It is. And when you go there, from that point, you can see further. But if you didn't get there, you wouldn't be able to see as far as what you could see.
Yeah. And the other thing is like, don't think that because you're just here, you can't just take a shot at something that you think is up here. Because you might actually be up here, but you just think you're down here. Do you know what I mean? Like the amount of times that I've just jumped in and been like, oh, I don't know if this is going to go right. And you just do it and it's gone pretty good or better than you've expected. And then you walk away and you go, whoa, you know, I'm leaving so much on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have that rush with you, that feeling for the rest of the day. After you do something awesome, you're like, whew, stays with you.
Oh, it's the best.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's like days later, you know, like last weekend I did Delta Goodrum's birthday party. And
because that was the same day as your birthday, wasn't it?
yes, me and Delta Goodrum actually share a birthday. And, you know, that's probably one of the top celebs that I've performed for. And then I went in and I blew them away. Like they were so happy. They were so impressed. And I'm like, holy crap, this is a big deal. Like I would never have thought I would have been able to do that. And the funny thing about Delta is she is one of the most normal, nicest people you'll ever meet, you know. But it's that thing where you're like, oh my gosh, you have all these expectations and you think it's going to be so scary. And then you go in there and like from the get-go, they might just love you, you know, or it might be a little bit awkward, you know. I've had shows where for the first 15 minutes, there's no laughs. And this was back when I was doing Comedy Magic. And for the first 15 minutes of a 30-minute show, there's no laughs.
And how do you deal with that? What happens?
You got to finish the show, but you can't just be like, okay, sorry guys. You know, it might be different if everyone's talking and they're really drunk and it's like, okay, it's probably might be better to just cut your losses at that point and, you know, wrap it up and whatever. But, you know, when you're paid to be at a corporate event and like half the people have only shown up because it's an awards night that no one wants to be at and they couldn't care less about anything but the free alcohol and the free food, is like, you just got to stick in there. And then they'll eventually warm to you. And then by the end of the show, you know, massive round of applause. Thank goodness. And then there have been shows that I've done that are just awkward the whole way through because it's one of my first 5 or 10 shows that I've ever done. And my timing's off. I'm talking too quick.
What habits did you have to stop?
Well, you know, early on, I cut out TV. I totally cut it out and I still don't watch it that often. Sometimes I do, but generally I would come home from school and I'd just be on the computer all night watching magic and learning magic, and that's just what I did. I would, if I was in front of the TV, I had a deck of cards in my hands and I was practicing. So nowadays, TV is not the problem. This is the problem, right? And I definitely fall prey to this all the time. So if I could give any advice, it's delete the apps off your phone if you can.
So no more Candy Crush?
No Candy Crush. Absolutely not.
I actually never played it.
And my mum is the expert at it. She's like over 9,000 level, whatever it is. But you know, if you like, there's only so much time in a day. Like a day goes fast. If I get up, go do a workout, it's like 2 hours is gone. I got like 10 hours left. If I do a gig that night and it's 2 hours, plus I got to get dressed and ready and everything set up and do that, that's another 4 hours. Like and especially as an adult, you have these responsibilities. It's like the precious 5 or 10 minutes that we waste on this phone totally adds up. So that has to get that out as much as possible, because there's always something you can be doing, and it doesn't have to be like, oh, like I'm going to do my taxes now and then I'm going to make it the worst day possible because yeah. It's like there's always something you could do. You could be, if you want to be on your phone, text 50 clients, and see how they're doing and whatever. There's all these things that you could be doing that'll, push the needle further and further, and you don't have to, if you want to go all out and hustle, 16 hours a day, fine. I'm not wired like that. I could play with cards for 16 hours a day, and I have, but you got to cut out the distractions.
Okay, so cut out the distractions and stay focused.
Stay focused, absolutely. And the way that you stay focused is you set yourself up and you set up your life in a way where you are you're committed. Like someone gets a personal trainer, that's it. You're training 3 days a week. It's like no matter what, it's locked in. The same with me. I'm going down every weekend to the restaurant, in high school, at least one night a week. And no matter how much I don't feel like it, or how scared I am to try that new trick out on an audience when I don't feel like it's ready yet, I'm just going to go do it, and it's locked in and I have to do it. So if you can commit to something and continue to commit to things, like if someone's like, do you want to have a meeting? I'm like, yes. And then I'm like, oh, I don't have much time this week or whatever. It's like, too bad. That I have to commit to these things that I know are going to pay off, and I'm going to have to just figure out how to do everything else around that. If a job comes in and I've performed on my birthday. You were at the event a year or two ago when it was my birthday, and I'm there doing 4 hours of magic, going up to every table that I can, giving everyone a business card, and it's my birthday. It's like, oh, shouldn't you just have a load off? It's like, no, I have the easiest work week of anybody. My weekend is like, you got to make the most out of it. And that's another thing, it might not apply to everyone, but how I build my business is kind of like the old school way. Getting in front of people, making yourself known, who you are, what do you offer, and especially making it known what you kind of provide as a service. Because if I'm there and I do magic, if I don't tell them I do corporate events, they might not even have the idea. If I tell them, then they're like, oh, that's a great idea. Next sales meeting. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, at a wedding? I didn't even think of that. Yeah, most people don't know each other, and it's like no one wants an awkward conversation. They give them some magic, and then they talk about it for the rest of the night. So any way that you can get in front of people, especially the people who have the ability to kind of either book you or further your career, you just get in front of them, make yourself known, give everyone a business card. That's what I do. Everyone gets a business card. I used to give business cards out to kids, and be like, tell your parents to book me for your next party. It's better off in their hands than my hands. So
hustle and hustle hard.
Yeah.
And was that your secret for building social media as well? Got a big following.
Social media, I went viral on purpose. There was no luck involved in that. Although, you get lucky breaks when you're working your butt off at something. But I saw an opportunity on TikTok. I saw that some magicians were doing very well on there, and that there weren't many magicians on there. So I got on there and I studied every single one of them. I looked at what are they doing that's working? What can I see that I can apply? And then I just went and I did it, and I tried to make it better and saw things where I could add my own kind of style into things. Funnily enough, I did get lucky because my most viral video ever, which has 250 million views across the internet, I made that in 20 minutes, and I wasn't even going to post it. I'm like, oh, I don't know, this is pretty silly. And turned out to be the unicorn of what I've created content-wise.
And what made you post it though, last minute?
I was like, oh, whatever, we'll see how it goes. There's a lot of that. You just go, oh, we'll give it a go. We'll just see. I don't know. I don't know how I'll do a video and I'm like, oh, this will get 1 million views for sure. 100,000, and that's great for some, but 100,000 compared to I've had videos with 50 million views just on TikTok, and it's like, oh, why did that not do well? You try something else. I don't know if this will do well. Boom, 10 million views. What? So it's like you don't know the result before you do it. You just gotta kind of throw everything at the wall and see what sticks,
and learn from it. If it doesn't stick, why didn't it stick?
That's right. And always, like, our failures can definitely stick out to us. One thing my dad always says is he's like, write down what your successful actions have been. Don't forget what has worked. Write down everything that you've done that's worked and do it, because it's produced a result. It's going to keep producing results. And most people, you have a restaurant owner, someone, acquires the restaurant, they come in, they change everything. The restaurant was already doing great. Get the guy to write down everything that he does each week and do exactly that. That's the easiest thing in the world, is to take over a going concern. And because it's like all the hard part is done, all the trial and error is done. So you're doing all this trial and error. You have to, I don't like to take a lot of time doing admin or recording things, but if I was to record one thing or two things, it would be the statistics each week of, how many calls am I getting? How much money did I make? How many business cards did I give out? And what are the successful actions that I have done? And what did I find out this week that worked? And how can I do that again?
So that kind of discipline and focus that's gotten you to where you are now, what do you think that took? What's the inner work that takes?
I don't know. You just kind of got to want it.
But aside from wanting it, is there any books that you read? Is there any certain mantras or affirmations? Do you meditate? Is there any certain practices that have helped you?
I like to read. I like to read business books, and I've read some self-improvement stuff and that kind of thing. I feel like it's definitely useful to start your day off and listen to something motivational on YouTube, for example. I love Grant Cardone, and that dude always gets me fired up to get my butt into action.
Because you went to his seminar. We were there together, weren't you?
Yeah. I chased down Grant Cardone in the rocks. Yeah, I was at Town Hall. I was in jeans and big boots, and I ran. Yes, thank you. I ran for 15 minutes like a madman down to the rocks, and I found them because I saw them on their Instagram story, and I was like red, panting. Oh my God, I'm your biggest fan. Showed them some magic, got on their Instagram and everything. It was amazing. So that guy's definitely, he'll get you into action every day. And I don't know, I like to see people who've done it and basically look at it and see, okay, what are they doing? What could I kind of take from that, and how could I use it? I think that people can get too caught up in the whole, affirmations thing and the meditation thing, and that it can become, like, I've heard people say that meditation is a vacation, and instead it's just like you just kind of got to do it, and that's the way I look at it. That might not be for some people. If I get too overwhelmed with work or I feel introverted, I'll just go and take a walk and look around till I feel better. Or I'll switch gears to something else, preferably something that, will further my career, whether it's I'll go and make a video, or I'll go and, try to email some clients to strike up some potential work or whatever.
Because when you focus, it's very much like a laser beam rather than a spotlight. Do you know what I mean? Like putting that intense focus just on one thing, of course it's going to work, like if you just keep going.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people sometimes, if they do get that first bit of failure, they might not keep going. And that's what I wanted to uncover with you, which we did. Like, what would be your tips for getting over failure? Like, how do you just get out there? That's amazing, everything that you've built and what you've done. What are the 3 biggest tips you'd give to anyone right now looking to grow their business?
Oh, okay. Social media is huge.
Yep.
Hire a VA to automate as much as you can of your social media and your online stuff. They work wonders. Like, that is amazing. That's a super tip right there. Create content and create it specific to the platforms. Do something like a podcast if you're an expert at something. Everyone's an expert at something. And if you're going into business, you're either an expert at something or you're trying to be an expert at something. So if you were to have a podcast, you could be getting people in that you also want to get advice from, and then they're the ones offering a lot of the value to the audience of the podcast. So content is huge. Having an online presence is huge. Digital and your social media and all of that, that's the new resume. That's your business card. Definitely get a business card as well, because a lot of good clients are old school. They like having a business card. Excuse me, I'll say that again. Definitely get a physical business card though. A lot of the best clients are old school, because a lot of the millionaires and people who have become so successful, they didn't grow up with mobile phones. They like a face-to-face meeting. They like to have a coffee. They like to get on a phone call rather than text. They like to get a physical business card. So there's that. But when it comes to content and online, you can just reach so much of a bigger audience. And LinkedIn is king. LinkedIn is amazing. And it's been amazing for my business in the last 12 months. Even with a smaller following, I've got a 10th on LinkedIn of even just what I have on Instagram, but I probably get 10 times more leads from LinkedIn than Instagram. So get on LinkedIn and look for people who are in the roles and in the areas that you can service and you can help, or that they can hire you.
What top tip would you give to someone who is struggling to get out of their comfort zone? And it's not as simple sometimes as just give it a go. Go out into the deep end. What top tip would you give them?
Well, there's 2 kind of things that I've done that are useful. And one thing is breaking it down bit by bit, but not kidding yourself in doing that and, instead kind of avoiding it or procrastinating. You actively break it down. For example, let's say I learn a trick. Okay, first step for that, I learn the trick. Okay, I learn it, learn the moves, I practice it. I might just practice the moves first. Once I've got the moves down, I'll practice the moves with the patter, the script. Once I've got that down, I'll go and I'll try it in front of my mum. My mum has seen most of my tricks first, right? And then that's an extra element of difficulty. Even though, I had the last 2 steps down, now I've got to master this 3rd step because for some reason I don't have it perfect, because this is just a different scenario. And then once you master that, I would go to a friend or a close friend who's still going to be nice. Now, when it comes to doing that for like business and stuff, you can do that the same kind of way. You can practice your opening, your pitch and whatever, you get it down, then you can practice your body language with it or whatever, or, what am I going to do with my hands? I got these things here and I never even thought about it because I was holding the palm cards before. They got to look comfortable. Then you do that. Then you practice it in front of your mom, and then you practice in front of a friend, and then you eventually build it up so that you're not taking one massive bite out of it. You're breaking it down into steps where you can definitely have a win on that.
And see, that's amazing, because a lot of people just stop when they see that big picture because they find it too overwhelming. But what you've said and what I say to other people as well is focus on the next logical step only. So what's the next move you need to do that gets you closer to the big goal? And it's simple. It's like what you said. It's just learn the first trick. Just practice it and present it once. Then see what the feedback is. Then adapt, practice it again.
Yeah, and I think people are worried sometimes to take things a little slower. I'm all about getting stuff done as fast as possible, and I'm very impatient. I always want to like get it done ASAP or get that trick perfect ASAP. But if you find yourself like unwilling to confront doing something, then see how, if possible, see how you could break it down and make it a bit more approachable. What could you do? Oh, I could definitely practice it. Okay, I could practice it in my room. Good. Oh, I could definitely, practice reading it out loud off the page. Okay, that might feel a bit uncomfortable, but I got to get that down before I can do it without the script in front of me, and so on. The other thing too is if you make a commitment to do something that's out of your comfort zone and you can't back out of it, you're going to rise to the occasion. And it's happened a lot of the time.
And do you find if you tell people what your commitment is, it makes you more stuck to it? Like it makes you more committed?
Well, I mean, yeah, there's probably a bunch of ways that you could stay committed to something, like having a personal trainer thing. My thing was, I was booked for a magic show and I have to have a 15-minute show ready in 3 days. They're not going to pay me and they're going to be really upset if the show sucks. I have 3 days to get my act together, literally. So yeah, and you can tell someone about it, but I don't know. I feel like you kind of have to make like an actual commitment to doing something. Like, I've organized the meeting. I've got a meeting with this guy, So it's like I have to have my pitch ready. You could just tell your friend, I'm going to be king of pitching in whatever. It's like this vague goal, and it's going to be, by the end of the month. And it's like, well, okay, that friend you might not be scared of their disapproval. If you book a meeting with, I don't know, CEO of a company, and you got to go and present your offer or pitch to them,
you got to be ready.
Yeah, and if you cancel, you look like an idiot.
Will Smith says something really interesting. I love it. I share it with a lot of people. He says you don't have to get ready if you stay ready, because he's talking about opportunities. So if you're not ready, when an opportunity comes, you're not going to be able to take it. Whereas he's saying if you stay ready for anything that comes up, you don't have to get ready.
Yeah, 100%.
So almost wrapping it up, what books are you reading at the moment? I ask every guest this question.
I am not reading any books at the moment. But yeah, I do.
Favorite book to date then? What would that be?
I like the 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. And yeah, that's it. That's probably my main pick. I'm going to go home and look at my bookshelf and be like, oh, there were 10 that I could have suggested.
It's all right. Put it up on Instagram.
Yeah, I will.
Thank you so much for being a guest today. You've shed so much wisdom.
The least I could do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.